Welcome to Board Certified, expert interview episodes about medical licensing exams and healthcare careers. I'm Cassandra, marketing specialist with Achievable, and we offer affordable, adaptive online prep courses for the USMLE Step 1, MCAT, PTCE, MPTE, CSCS, and others. Each course contains everything you need to succeed, including comprehensive study guides, video lessons, thousands of practice questions powered by our memory-enhancing algorithm, and full-length practice exams. You can try any course for free at achievable.me, and if you like it, use the code PODCAST to save 10%. Now, let's get started. Today, we have Markus Fürst with us, and Markus, I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, like you said, my name is Markus Fürst. I'm from Sweden, but moved to the US 9 years ago. And I have my own company, which is a platform for athletes where they can record their workouts in the gym, and then it makes it easier for coaches to track the results and keep everything in one place. And then I also work as a strength and conditioning coach for the University of Florida for men's golf and women's golf, men's tennis and women's tennis. And then also I'm the author for the CSCS course on Achievable.
Yeah, great. Cool. So today we are talking about the CSCS certification, and that is the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So to get started, what kinds of backgrounds, whether that's academic or professional, tend to benefit the most from pursuing this certification?
Usually anything in sports. If you were like an athlete before, that's usually very beneficial. If you have an exercise science degree or anything related to that's very beneficial too, or again just working in sports, if that is professional, high school, collegiate, whatever it is, usually tends to be the people that take this exam and do very well.
Yeah, that seems obvious, right? That's the path that people go down, having that type of background. Could someone that maybe doesn't have an exercise science background or anything related to that, maybe they're coming from a different type of career, they're having a career change, would they be able to maybe pursue this as well?
Yeah, of course. I think anyone, regardless of the field, can still pursue this career path. It might mean that they have to study a little bit more, because if you have a background in it, then usually a lot of the material in the course comes easy to you because you've seen it before, so it's more repetition. If you don't have that background, then it's starting from scratch. But I do think that anyone, regardless of their background, can be successful in this field. You just might have to study a little bit more.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just maybe digging into that a bit further, there are different fields that maybe people are coming from that don't have this type of background. And I'm thinking of things like maybe they have a business degree, or maybe they come from like an education background. Are there things from those backgrounds that they could maybe incorporate and that would give them some sort of unique advantage that others from exercise background might not really have?
Yeah, for sure. If you have a business degree or whatever like relatable to that, I think that you have a good understanding of analytics, and I think that's very advantageous because especially now the last couple of years, the field of strength and conditioning is expanding, and we're incorporating a lot of technology, and you need to analyze the data from the athletes that you're working with. So having that background, I think, is a huge advantage, just seeing patterns and analyze all the data that you collect. So having that from before just gives you a huge advantage of that. And the same like with something like the medical field, if you're studying pre-med and then want to switch field, like you have a very good understanding of the body, the physiology of it, and I think that gives you a very big advantage as well. And the same for education, like coaching is, you gotta educate the athletes in the end. Like you gotta make them understand why you're doing what you're doing with them, so they get more buy-in to what you're doing with them. So by having that education background too, then you just have that naturally, like the communication part of it, because it's not only science that you need to know, but you need to have the communication skill, the education skills to be very successful in the field. So there's a lot of fields that definitely can be very successful, even though they're not like exercise science related, but having that other edge, so to say, if it's analytics, education, like medical, whatever it is, I think there's a lot of fields out there that could be very successful with the exam and being a strength and conditioning coach as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because it's more than just knowing how the body works in science and things like that. You have to still know how to, like you said, communicate with people. You have to know how to help people understand certain things.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that it seems obvious, but not everyone really has that skill. So those are definitely professions that I think you can develop that skill a little bit more.
Yeah, just take myself for instance, like I'm very analytical and I have a good understanding of the science, like that's my strong suit, but my communication skills are not necessarily my strongest quality. So that's something that I always try to work on, but maybe if I had an education background, that would be my strongest part of the job, so to say. So everyone has their flaws, but if you have some sort of background, whatever it might be, like you just turn it into your strength, so to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. And then we touched on it a little bit, but just generally speaking, do you think there are any common misconceptions about who should be pursuing this? Say, oh, maybe you were a college athlete or maybe are really interested in like biology or something like that. Are there any misconceptions about who should be going into this field?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that you have to be a former athlete of some sort or have a big background in that to be successful in this field. I think that's number one. But I also think there's a misconception is that you have to look super strong, you have to be super jacked and look apart in that way to also be successful. But I don't think that's true. I think to get more respect and buy-in from your athletes, you still obviously need to work out and be somewhat in shape, but you don't need to be the strongest person out there, the fastest person out there to be pursuing the CSCS.
Yeah, I think that's a great point because I think a lot of people have that idea. Look at this really strong person and super buff and super fast. And that's nice to know it's not always the case because I'm sure that can be intimidating for a lot of people who are looking to take this exam or get into this field.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay, so then let's say that someone, takes the exam, they pass, and now they have this CSCS credential. How does that kind of help someone stand out in this industries, and what sort of opportunities become available because of that?
So in the sports performance industry, it's for most jobs, at least in strength and conditioning, you need to have a certification. So in regards to that, you won't necessarily stand out. But if you go into the personal training industry and train more of the general population, having something like this, I think really sets you apart for someone with just a personal training certification. Yeah, in the end of the day, like you need to have the certification for sports performance jobs, again, specifically strength and conditioning jobs. But I think if anything related to working people out and making people healthier, having this, it's just a huge advantage. Like even if you're studying to be a dietitian or a nutritionist, is having this certification is give you a big advantage, I think, because then the people that are hiring you look, okay, this person doesn't only have knowledge about nutrition but also like training. So any field related to strength and conditioning, having the certification, I think is very beneficial on your resume.
Yeah, and you mentioned not just anyone can go out and just be like, hey, I'm gonna help train you or give you workout advice. Perhaps they can with the age of social media and those types of platforms. Yeah. But how does the CSCS certification differ from other strength and conditioning certifications?
I think it's the certification that is the most sought after. There's other strength and conditioning certifications, but the CSCS is the one that most people look at. You want to have that one because it's the one, again, that is the most, I don't want to say reliable, but the one that most people require you to have. So again, I think if you want to be a strength and conditioning coach, this is the credentials that you need to have and should strive to get.
Great. Cool. And then switching gears a little bit to all of these technology advances that we have nowadays, are there any specific tools or platforms that people looking to take the CSCS exam should be familiar with, or even people just looking to get into this field?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, sports science is becoming very big in strength and conditioning. So collecting data is a big part of the job description. So there's different platforms for that. We have BALD, for instance, which have force plates. So that's like two plates that you jump on and collects data in the sense like how high you jump, how fast you jump, asymmetries between left and right leg. They also have other tools such as like your hamstring strength, your grip strength. They have a lot of tools that you can use, but BALD is something you should be familiar with. Most universities at least uses it. And then Hawking Dynamics is another one, which is also a very similar platform, just a different brand. And then another one is Catapult, which tracks like intensity and volume during training. So say for instance you're a soccer player, you put this little device on, and then throughout practice it will track how fast you run, how far you run, how many sprints you do, how much distance you cover throughout the practice. So all these tools, there's just a few of them, are becoming very big again, at least on the pro level and the top of the collegiate level, I would say. If you're working more in a private sector, I would say it's more, because then sometimes depending where you work, like money is more of a limit, so you might not have these fancy tools, so to say, because they're pretty expensive. So then it becomes more like, can you build out your own data collection platform? Like I, for instance, before we started using all of these, I used Excel or Google Sheets to record all my data and create graphs and dashboards in there. So being proficient in Excel or Google Sheets is very beneficial as well. Just to visually, not only for yourself, to visually see the progression and or the regression for that matter in your athletes, but also to show it to the coaches or the athletes themselves so they know, okay, what we're doing, we're going the right track. Any platform that collects data from an athletic perspective or sports performance perspective, you need to have an understanding about and be aware of, because it will be hard to, if you don't have the platform, the equipment yourself, then obviously you can't try it out, and like I said, they're very expensive. But just being aware of what they are and how they work, I think is crucial.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's nuts to think about just all these advancements and how much data that you can collect. And that's such a big part of what you do, right? Is understanding this data and how you can use it to improve or change things. And then I guess just to wrap up this topic, with technology, it's always changing, it's always advancing, and it seems like there's just like a new product on the market every other week. So is this something that when you're studying for the CSCS that is even included in the exam, or is that just like outside homework that you have to just really be looking into the industry and seeing what's going on?
Yeah, it's not in the exam whatsoever, and it's not in the course either. So it's something you got to look up on your own. It might not be a make or break from someone getting a job, because in the end of the day, like, you know, if you know what it is but you haven't used it, it's not like you can put that in your resume, if that makes sense. So it is something you got to look up on your own. But just having somewhat of a knowledge before going into a job, if you have no experience about these platforms, I just think it's a huge advantage. But then also, like, now with AI expanding as much as it is, I think that's going to become a huge aspect of it too. Not like that it will replace jobs within strength and conditioning, because you still need the coaching aspect of it. From a program perspective, I think that's going to take over a little bit, because you can use AI now for whatever you want. So you can build it out to create workouts for you in the way that you usually create workouts, and tell them, like, this is the structure that I want, this is how I like to do things, and then it will spit out workouts for you. So I think that's going to become a bigger part as we move forward. But again, the coaching aspect is always going to be there. So like communication skills is always going to be super important.
Yeah, definitely. And like at the end of the day, AI can't replace a human being. So like,
exactly.
having that connection too is really important, and something that maybe not yet, who knows about the future, but definitely not something that can be replaced.
Yeah, because the athletes, they want, you need to earn their trust, and you need to have a relationship with them, and like you said, as AI can't replace that. But like from the back end of it, like again, writing the workouts and stuff like that, that AI can replace that, but not the human aspect of it.
Yeah. Great. Is there anything else that maybe we missed that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
Just again, I think this certification and the credentials from the CSCS is just very beneficial, especially if you know you want to work with athletes, even if it's not necessarily strength and conditioning. It's just a huge advantage. So if it's athletic training or a nutritionist or whatever it is, I think having this is just a game changer. It looks very good on your resume.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been Board Certified, hosted by Cassandra from Achievable with Markus Fürst. And Achievable has great online courses for the USMLE Step 1, MCAT, PTCE, MPTE, CSCS, and others. And you can try them out for free at achievable.me.